we've talked about, and we've invited all the heads of the big supermarkets. And we've said, you know, come and talk to us. Tell us what the issue is for you, how you are helping, and how much worse, if at all, or better, is the cost of living crisis going to get. So we're going to start off with Richard Walker. Richard is the Managing Director of Iceland. And you're not just the Managing Director of Iceland, Richard. Very good to see you. But your dad, he founded the whole Iceland chain, didn't he?
Yeah, with my mum, who thought of the name. So it's her fault that the Icelandic government are suing us for our name. But there you go. That's a different story. Founded 52 years ago.
52 years ago, and, you know, how the UK's changed during that time. We've prospered, and now here we are facing the biggest threat to a reduction in living standards in 70 years. How is that a challenge, not only as a business model, but you also have a sort of corporate responsibility ethos, don't you, at Iceland as well?
Absolutely. I mean, I would say in our kind of half a century experience, we, as my dad often reminds me, we have been through many challenges before, including inflation running at sort of mid 20%, you know, in the late 70s. So as he often reminds me, imagine retailing then. So clearly what we're facing is a challenge, not necessarily unprecedented, but we have a real responsibility to look out for our customers. To be honest, some of our customers might only have 25 quid a week to spend on food. So I was worried about them before this cost of living crisis. But now, I mean, honestly, it would give me sleepless nights because, as we all know, household bills are going through the roof. Food is going up. You'll all have seen that. And therefore, we've got an absolute obligation to look out as best we can for our customers.
Richard, what I want you to do is look into your crystal ball here. You've got to keep a business going. You've got to keep those customers coming through the door. Therefore, prices and product have got to be attractive to you. Is this going to get worse, or is it going to get better?
Look, we're working day and night to get through this. Our buyers are trying to keep prices as low as possible. But I think the reality is, you know, official inflation figures are maybe just nudging 10%. The reality is it's more than that. You know, we know that, our customers know that. And it probably will get a bit worse, to be honest, as the autumn bites. I mean, if you look at current trajectories of everything from fuel and gas and commodity prices, that is unfortunately where we're headed. The war in Ukraine, there's no quick fix to that, unfortunately, which is driving up lots of different prices of different things. So yeah, it probably will get a bit worse, but we're absolutely there for our customers and launching a whole range of initiatives, a drumbeat of activity, of discounts, of deals, of vouchers, so that we can step up and help them through this.
I never really understand when it comes to supermarkets, especially one like you, and forgive me, if I think of Iceland, I think of a sort of, would you say it's fair to say, sort of a budget sort of supermarket? I don't know if that's what you'd want customers to think they're getting a good deal. Why, when it's a branded item, is there such variation between the supermarkets? And, you know, I think of Iceland as being affordable, but you look at a tub of Lurpak, £5 in Iceland now. It's cheaper in Waitrose, £3.75. You wanted a packet of Richmond sausages in Iceland, £3.89. You get them for £2.30 in Sainsbury's. Same with Clover Spread, Iceland £1.80, Asda £1.65. I just don't understand when they're a particular brand, why there's such variation in prices, especially from a budget supermarket.
I think that there'll always be different variations depending on whether those branded products are on deal or not in certain competitors. If you look overall as a basket, you're absolutely right. You know, Iceland is definitely affordable. We're value orientated, and our customers absolutely depend on us for that. And it's interesting to note our sales are quite good at the moment because no one's trading up to Waitrose. Everyone's looking for the best possible value. But we manage the margin, and different products may be on different prices, different deals at different times. But some of those deals you mentioned, for example, Lurpak, we're now going to bring in inflation-busting copycats and lookalikes, different maybe tertiary brands that offer pretty much the same quality but a lot more aggressive value, because ultimately there is a brand tax on branded items, and that's why people are either moving to white label products or indeed our own label products. So yes, we're brands on ambient grocery, but we're actually 100% own label on frozen, and we're absolutely the best quality, best value, and we can control the price a lot more. So we used to make about 25% on our £1 frozen lines, but now we're selling those at a loss leader, about 0%. We're not making any money, but we can do that. We're in control of that brand because it's our own label. We're holding that price for our customers to the end of the year.
Well, you see, I'm fascinated with the whole science of that, Richard, because price can be everything. But tell me this: we talk about the big four, and the big four are Tesco, Sainsbury, Asda, and Morrison's, I believe. Yeah. And I think it was Aldi we were reporting on yesterday. Was it Aldi or Lidl? But they were making advances on all of that. So you're outside that. These are giant conglomerates. You're much more a family business. They've got petrol stations, a lot of them petrol stations in their forecourts, and they deal in petrol, and they can use petrol as a loss leader, or they can use it to subsidise other stuff that's going on. Is that a huge disadvantage to you?
Yeah, it can be. To be honest, you're right. There's a lot of profiteering going on at the moment because petrol prices are through the roof and they're making an extraordinary amount of money. And I don't think any petrol retailer is passing on the full benefits to the consumer. It would be, good for society if they were reinvesting that in food and everything else, and maybe they will. But it is a different business model, and sometimes it is hard to compete against it. We're a big little company. We've got 5 million customers a week. An army of 30,000 people in terms of our colleagues, and a turnover of about 4 billion. So we're big enough to make an impact. And where we can be more effective is being agile and nimble as a private family business. We're the shareholders, we're in charge, and therefore we can react a lot quicker with a lot of these deals. For example, we've now started running a 10% saving for anyone over 60. Every Tuesday they come in store, and it's been wildly successful. And we can just turn that on. We can do things like that and be there for our customers.
Do that without compromising on quality, because the concern, I suppose, it's all part of a bigger picture. And I know, you're running a business, so this won't be your concern. But, cheap food often isn't healthy food.
No, and that's why we've got to be very mindful of that, and also customers would spot it immediately. To be honest, you can't cut corners. I mean, fortunately, in the UK, we have one of the most highly regulated food markets in the world, so quality standards are good already. We can't compromise on value, which is an equation of cheapness, but also quality. And we want to make sure that our customers don't have to compromise either. I mean, interestingly, we are seeing a big switch to frozen food. That trend, that's just not just us. That's a trend that's been happening for the last couple of years because people are getting more mindful of things like food waste. So when you buy frozen, you eliminate your food waste because you just refreeze and use what you need through the week. But also you can budget more throughout the week as well. So people are starting to switch to frozen, and that doesn't necessarily mean bad quality. In fact, sometimes it means better quality. If you want fresh fish, buy it frozen because it's frozen at sea and everything's locked in. Same with some fruits that we sell frozen, some vegetables as well, double grade A peas, they're frozen within 20 minutes of being harvested. So it's not necessarily, always the case in terms of quality.
Well, look, listen, what we want to do now, Richard, is bring in William Pickup. William is in Glossop in Derbyshire. He's a GBNews viewer and listener, and he's a former civil servant.
Good morning.
Very, very good to see you, William. I don't know, what is it like with you? Do you have an Iceland near you, or are you an Iceland customer? What would you like to say about the cost of living affecting your supermarket shop?
Well, yes, we certainly had an Iceland shop near us and we used it. It was excellent. So it's very good to hear from Richard Walker this morning. But it shut, unfortunately, 6 months ago. So it's not going to help us particularly. I was very interested to hear what Richard was saying about the cost of food. I mean, it's not really impacting on myself or my wife at the moment because we're vegetarians. So we sort of get by on a couple of carrots and a sort of a slice of leaf every day. So it's not really hit us much because obviously meat is the most expensive thing. But for us, the most worrying thing about what Richard said is what's going to happen in the autumn. Because the biggest issue, I think, that is like a tsunami heading towards people is the cost of energy. Energy has gone up in April. It's going up again on the 1st of October. They're estimating by 51%. I'll give you an example of why I call it a tsunami. A year ago, I was paying £140 a month for my gas and electricity on a fixed tariff. They're estimating now that on the 1st of October, it will be over £7,000 a year.
And that just leaves nothing in your pocket for this whole dilemma between eating and heating, and you have to be very mindful of that, Richard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, William's right, and I mean, don't pity the poor businessman, but imagine what it's like in terms of energy costs for us. 1,000 shops and a lot of fridges and freezers, and there's no consumer price cap for energy, even though I've asked the government that they should be helping, because actually that does in turn impact the customer, because that's an operational cost that is tripled, quadrupled for us. I mean, tens of millions of quid every year that's just going up, and it's very difficult to control that. Interesting about the store closure. I know the store you're talking about as well. We are actually one of the few chains that's opening shops. We're opening 30 a year at the moment, but I'm sorry that we've closed that. And actually, that is representative of another challenge that we face. We don't close many stores a year, but actually business rates are another cost headwinds that, as a bricks and mortar retailer, we have to face. And it's an unfair taxation on traditional high street retailers. And that's really important because it can affect stores, store closures, it can affect jobs. I think it's really important that we have a rebalancing of the tax system, so that we have more online taxation, less bricks and mortar taxation, so that the likes of Amazon pay their fair share. And I say that as one of the biggest online retailers in the UK. We do more home deliveries a week than Ocado, but I do think it needs to be reweighted.
Well, it's interesting listening to this whole discussion going on in the wings. Alice Denby, Deputy Editor of CapEx, on this. What would you take away from what you're hearing and what you're seeing here?
I think for me, the biggest thing was what Richard said, that the headline figure of 10% inflation really masks what people are actually feeling in their pockets. People have seen the cost of their food and their energy bills go up way beyond 10%. And this is just a sign to me of how inflation is this kind of acid that drips through, and it drips into every story that we've been talking about this morning, whether that's the strikes or the war in the Ukraine. How do we afford to increase defence spending when people are facing this enormous cost of living crisis? So this is a real poison in our politics at the moment, and the government needs to get a handle on it. And I differ from Richard in saying that I don't think more taxes, like an online tax, is the answer, because ultimately that will hit consumers.
But he does make an interesting point about landlords and business rates. And, you know, if I go into another high street and you go to an optician, or you go to, you know, a small boutique or whatever, a barber's, whatever, they all say the same thing. I mean, landlords seem to do very, very well at times when people are not doing well.
Yeah, business rates is definitely something that the government should be looking at. But I would say that an online tax isn't necessarily the way to rebalance, because many of these small businesses will have to be pivoting to online as well as having that high street space.
Yes, it's so complicated.
I just want to get a word finally from you, William. You're obviously talking about this huge uptick in your bill from the autumn. The government has announced a crisis package, especially for those on the lowest incomes. I think it's something like £650 in a one-off payment for 8 million people on welfare support, so very much targeted towards those. I mean, do you think the government's doing enough on this?
I think it's made a very good start. But my advice is, do not rely on the government and do not rely on politicians. Listen to people like Richard, who can give you great advice on how to reduce your food bills by using frozen food. We started reducing our electricity bill and gas bill last October. We were testing out what the best systems would be because we knew what was coming. So, for example, we decamped into our conservatory really early. We didn't put our gas central heating on until November. There's things like that you can do. The thing is with this, the rise in the cost of energy is so high that doing small stuff on your heating and energy bills isn't going to work. You're going to have to think about how I'm going to switch the central heating off for long periods of time, even in winter, and how you're going to manage that. But don't rely on politicians. Get yourself some thermal underwear, get yourself a nice blanket, get yourself a 1 kilowatt fan heater, decamp into a small room. These are all things that people are really going to have to consider with what's coming.
Well,
as well.
Yeah, but I think
wearing...
it's fascinating that you say that, William, because we couldn't give that advice, or certain experts in the studio couldn't, because people would say, well, it's my human right. People have got used to quite a lot of comfort and they won't accept anything less than what they're used to.
Yes, I think it's exactly right, but we're left with no choice. We have to look after ourselves and our family. And it's going to be pretty horrendous for people with families. I'm retired and there's just myself and my wife, and we're doing okay. But for a lot of people, this is going to be the biggest hit they're going to take in probably a generation.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.